So you want to know how to handle the Nordschleife at a world-class level and build your setup in iRacing? No worries, we'll tackle that today. I'm Josh Rogers, professional sim racer for VRS, Coanda Simsport, coach of Virtual Racing School, and 2 times winner of the Porsche Takeaway Esports Super Cup.
Over the years, iRacing has introduced many ways to tweak and adjust your car to fit your needs. Setups became a core component to being fast on track, and everyone should use them to get as much out of the car as possible. However, a lot of it can seem overwhelming at first. So today I will show you how to find your groove when it comes to building setups and racing. The Nordschleife is one of those circuits, more so than others, that always rewards track knowledge and car understanding. So it's a great place to start. So without further ado, let's head to the green hell, the Nordschleife. Well, I'd love to tell you that there's one good overarching setup that's going to give you the best time at every track. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Each different circuit has its own set of characteristics and challenges that you need to overcome, and every set of these difficulties will impact what setup you choose to go with.
Every car behaves differently, and iRacing offers a large variety of them. Today, we'll be using my championship winning 911 GT3 Cup car, as it's known to not be the easiest car to drive or the easiest car to set up. Before we can kind of delve into the setup though, we do need to get a feeling for the car.
The iRacing service provides a lot of different options for setups, but maybe the most important thing is finding your flaws first. If you don't know what you lack, you won't know what you need from the car, and especially for newer drivers, this can be crucial. What's also crucial is you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos from Overtake.
Now that we've talked about the basics, let's get into the specific characteristics of the Nordschleife. If you'd like to know a little bit more about circuits in general, you can check out our other iRacing tutorial, How to Nail Every Track.
The way you drive the corners can massively impact your lap time. This track is one of those circuits that requires you to keep up your flow as much as you can, because corners are sometimes directly connected. If you make a mistake in corner A, corner B might also be less than optimal for you. Many racers make the mistake of driving into a corner way too hard here, losing a lot of average speed throughout the corner in the process. Sure, the corner entry is faster, but this circuit isn't one that generally tends to benefit stop and go driving styles. But it's not only the entry of the corner that can present problems. With a high number of medium speed corners at the Nordschleife, you might also lack mid-corner front grip. If you do so, a good band-aid fix for this is to either slightly go more negative on the front camber, in other words, increase the front camber, or bring the front toe closer to zero. In some cases, this might make the car a little bit looser in the mid-corner, but it will give you that little bit more mid-corner front grip that you're searching for. If you run into a similar problem in the higher speed corners, generally, it's primarily due to an issue in aero balance. The higher the speed of the corner, the more focus on the aero that the car has. So to gain some stability in these higher speed corners, you can always reduce the rear ride height slightly or increase the wing a little bit to improve your confidence in these types of corners. One general rule you can always stick to is that the slower the corner is, the more focus there is on mechanical grip. So if you're struggling in the slower speed corners, generally you might need to make some more tweaks in more mechanical grip of the setup, things like roll bars, cambers. But if it's more the higher speed turns that are your issues, then it's more going to be aero related tweaks. Once again though, it is pivotal to know the issues that you have. If you keep having problems keeping the car on the track in a particular corner, this can be fixed in a lot of ways. But if you identify the problem incorrectly, the fix can actually make the original issue even worse. Try to find the point in the corner that you're struggling with and start to work from there.
We've talked extensively about our track of choice, but let's take a look at our car for a second. The setups are very sensitive and balance orientated, and because of this, your driving style can heavily impact which direction you will take the setup.
The Porsche GT3 Cup car is certainly on the more difficult side of things when it comes to the cars that iRacing offers. It's not the most powerful, nor does it provide the best mechanical or aerodynamic grip, but what it does offer is a real challenge to drive on the limit. The unique placement of the engine in the rear of the car creates a sort of pendulum effect when you're driving it, so the rear of the car always tends to move around a little bit more, and that makes the car so much more special. Something you might find yourself playing around with a lot in the Cup car is the anti-roll bar adjustments. Now, in short, what the anti-roll bar does is it limits the roll from left to right of the car. So the stiffer you go, the less roll the car will have left to right, and the softer you go, the more roll the car will have from left to right. These values are something that we always change quite a lot, and they can have a massive impact on the balance of the car. Especially the Nordschleife, where sections like Flugplatz and Flanzgarten can result in the car getting airborne briefly, an anti-roll bar adjustment can sometimes work wonders here. If you want to stiffen up your front anti-roll bars, the car will generally tend to move towards more understeer balance. Stiffen up the rear anti-roll bars though, and that will do the opposite and introduce entry oversteer on turn into the corner. The famous carousel section is also a great example of when roll bars can impact the feeling of the car. Not only when you're entering the carousel, but also as you're going through it, it's important that the body of the car stays nice and level to the circuit. Try and maintain as much medium or mid-corner speed throughout the turn as much as you can. The more speed you can carry throughout that turn, the more you can slingshot out of the corner, and it also gives you a slightly better run down the next following straight. Another section of the circuit that I always find very, very difficult to set up for is the Hatzenbach section right at the start of the Nordschleife. You would like the car to be as soft as possible for the car to maintain its balance over the curbs through here, but that generally leads to issues later on around the lap. So usually you always need to sacrifice this section slightly by running the car just that little bit stiffer. It does make the section of the circuit a little bit harder, but it will benefit you later on throughout the lap. So it's important to remember that no setup works wonders on every single part of the circuit. Generally, you always have to sacrifice just that little bit somewhere.
A final thing you may need to watch out for is the brake bias, something that's often forgotten but very crucial. Brake bias essentially determines the distribution between how much brake force is sent to the front or the rear of the car.
With a 50% brake bias, both the front and the rear brakes will have equal pressure applied to them when you apply the brake. If you move the brake balance further towards the front, usually the straight line braking performance is improved, but it can be a little bit easier to lock an inside front tire when turning into the corner. A car with the brake bias moves slightly further to the rear, is a little bit looser under brakes most of the time, but it will turn in a little bit better for you initially, and you're less likely to lock that inside front tire when turning in. If you feel like you're starting to lock the front or rear brakes too easily, you should start to try and counteract this by making small adjustments to the brake balance value. This will improve your confidence in the car overall, so it's always a great thing to make small adjustments to throughout the lap. Quali sessions can give you a great indicator as to if there's anything to change for the race. Generally, you don't need to change anything between the qualifying and the race setup, but if you ever feel like you do, make sure you practice it and make sure that you're not entering uncharted territory. Obviously, there's no time to practice between qualifying and the race on the actual race day. So it's very important to make sure you're comfortable with what you have. And if you do need to adapt to something different, make sure you prepare for that.
The Nordschleife certainly impresses drivers with its challenging, diverse set of corners. However, because of this, sometimes it can be challenging for newcomers, but with the right practice, anything is always possible.
Be wary of where your faults are. Most of the time, you can identify where your car struggles in these areas. Be careful when entering a turn on the Nordschleife because of the connected nature of the circuit. A mistake can cost you even more time later on in the lap or even in that same sector. Look out for which corners give you the hardest time. If you struggle with low speed sections, you can tweak the mechanical sections of the setup. And if you lose a little bit more time in those higher speed sections of the track, then maybe the aero might be more at fault. Don't forget that the Porsche GT3 Cup car can be tough to master. Adjustments to the anti-roll bars and brake bias might be necessary to give you that little bit more confidence throughout the lap in particular sectors, so just remember that.
For more sim racing content, visit overtake.gg and check out our social media channels. If you enjoyed this video, on the right side of your screen, you can check out the Epic Factor video, learn a little bit more about me and my background in sim racing. Below, you can find some videos just for you. I'm Josh Rogers, and have a wonderful day.